Good dialogue can make or break a story. Recently, I was looking at book reviews, and one of the comments was talking about how the dialogue didn't feel real. And it had me thinking, like, what is realism in dialogue?
Inconceivable!
In my opinion, dialogue exists on a spectrum between realistic and stylized, and there's everything in between. So today we're going to be talking about these two kinds of dialogue and which you should choose for your story. First, we'll start with realistic dialogue.
It's important to note, even with real dialogue, there's still a layer of fiction that comes with it. Everyday conversations, they don't flow well. They don't necessarily have a back and forth or point one, point two being made.
Want some bacon?
No, man, I don't eat pork.
Are you Jewish?
No, I ain't Jewish. I just don't dig on swine, that's all.
When it comes to real dialogue, what we're getting at is basically dialogue that feels natural in its context. One thing to kick us off is a great scene from Expedition 33.
Things change in the field.
There's a reason.
Protocol doesn't cover every contingency.
There's
you know that.
There's a reason. It's protocol.
There's interruption going on in the dialogue, and that surprisingly, it made it feel very real. Basically, when one of them stepped in and stepped on the toes, basically, of the other when they were talking, it really did give it this sense of realism.
When you're choosing between the spectrum, the main question you want to be asking is how much do you want immersion to play into your decision of dialogue? The author Damon Knight says, a writer is like a stage magician. Everything he does is illusion, deception, a trick. Even immersion is a trick in the end of the day. Realism is boring, but immersion is super helpful in having people care. Now, on the other side of this, we have something like stylized or cinematic dialogue, which is much punchier and people are way cleverer than they would be in real life, where immersion is kind of thrown to the wayside to make for more dramatic scenes. Scenes like the reveal of Darth Vader in Star Wars is not a way that someone would talk. No one would say, "Luke, I am your father," in real life, but it allows for a very quotable moment. There are scenes like the Hulk scene from Avengers.
I'm always angry.
While these scenes are not realistic at all, they allow for these amazing dramatic stand-up and cheer moments that you couldn't get with realistic dialogue. The decision between realistic dialogue and stylized dialogue is a decision of whether you want to emphasize something like immersion and empathy on the realistic side, or emphasize something like drama and entertainment on the stylized/cinematic version. So now to jump into what actually makes up good dialogue. Most good dialogue has three things: motive, subtext, and characterization. First, we'll start with subtext, which includes both thematic subtext of the story and also character subtext. People don't just say what they feel. They don't say, "I am angry," "I am happy," "I am sad." That's not how characters work, and that's not how people work. Having subtext and always having something under the surface of what people are saying allows your reader to have introspection and have ideas of what things mean, even if they're not said explicitly.
Stephen King has something interesting to say about this. He says, the best dialogue is what people don't say. When a character is reacting to something, or when they're listening and they don't respond, what is the layer that's underneath there? When there's a theme that's behind all of this and driving these characters to say what they want to say. These are all stuff that you can play with and think about. My example that I wanted to really break down when it comes to realism and subtext even is from Interstellar. I like this scene in particular because it's actually a one-way dialogue. Cooper, played by Matthew McConaughey, he is coming back from a planet where time worked differently than back on Earth. So when he returns to the ship, he has messages that are from 23-ish years that he is missed from his children. And then the subtext is that Cooper had promised Murph that he would be back. You kind of have that layer underneath that's kind of driving this. So the theme ends up impacting every word that Murph says.
Hey Dad, you son of a bitch.
Murph's father has abandoned her. Cooper is filled with regret as he is hit with the mundane. So he gave up the simplicities of life, chasing something he thought would be grander.
You once told me that when you came back we might be the same age. And today I'm the age you were when you left.
And there's a sense of belief still in her, that even though she's mad about it, she believes that he will one day return. And I feel like that is really good foreshadowing as to what will happen at the end of the film.
The second thing that makes up good dialogue is motive, and this encapsulates both story motive and character motive. Now, when a writer does this badly, the motive of the author becomes louder than the motive of the character. An example of this is Maid and Butler dialogue. And it comes from old stage plays when they didn't have a clean way of doing exposition. So the maiden butler would come out at the beginning of the play and say, as you know, the master is away. Then the maid would go, yes, I do know that. And as you know, the pipe has broken and there's water all over the floor. It's two characters saying things that they already know just for the audience to be caught up with the exposition. It reads super stilted, and it is the author's motive being louder than the character motive. This goes back to the quote earlier about writers being stage magicians. You need your dialogue to push motive, both story and character. But if you make it too clear, you will see the magician's hand. And as anyone knows with magic, the moment you know how it works, it starts to break down. To fix this, you have to layer the character's character over this motive and almost hide what you're trying to do with the audience. A great way to do this is even to have character motive feel contradictory to the story motive. In the hero's journey, one of the early acts is about rejecting the call to action. And a lot of this is adding believability to character motive and going against story motive. Having moments like this where your characters contradict with your own story is hugely helpful in adding this realism to even the most stylized dialogue.
There's always going to be purpose in your dialogue. There's going to be some exposition you want to get across. There's character exploration. There's plot progression. There's a mix of all of these things potentially. So it's important to try to know what you're going for and making that as natural as possible. And things like we mentioned, if there's interrupting going on, or if there's some tension, there's some arguing, the sides are made clear. And you can start to do things like explore the characters and how they feel about the situation from their perspective. And you just have a lot of fun things to play with once you start to understand where you're going with your dialogue. My next example for realistic dialogue is from Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. There's a particular scene I love. It's actually at the climax towards the end of the film. Hans, the main villain, is played by Christoph Waltz, has caught our rebels. Hans essentially wants to break a deal with them. So it's interesting as the dialogue progresses, he goes from I caught you, I'm victorious, to maybe we can cut a deal and be on the same side here to find our way through this mess.
If you want to win the war tonight, we have to make a deal.
What kind of deal?
I love how you suddenly get a better view of the character. You know that a couple things from this display here, that one, he lies, obviously. He uses the situation to his advantage, and he will lie in whatever way he wants to make the most of it, to make certain that he has the upper hand.
Bingo!
Also, what's interesting is he loves what he does, and he wants people to know how good he is at it, and he's proud of that. It's just like a little game to him, when on the other side, the rebels, this is very real to them, because this is survival. For Hans, it's never about survival because he's guaranteed survival, and it's always about the game, about catching.
Talking about Hans leads really well into the third part of dialogue, which is characterization. Every character should feel different than every other. Otherwise, why are they separate characters? Our first instinct is to write people like us, which makes sense. We only know our own mind, so it's easy to write dialogue as if we're talking. But good writers will be able to write in different POVs and different motives and different morals and all of these different things. Hans is a great example of this. He's very different than most of the other characters in the story. Another tip is to write one sentence and write it differently in different characters and see how that turns out. Different characters will say different things in various different ways based on their education, based on how argumentative they are, based on their personality, based on their beliefs. Have all of these things motivate your dialogue, and your characterization will just bleed off of the page.
So that about wraps up our talk on dialogue. What scenes do you really love that have stuck out to you over the years, whether that is watching or reading? Let us know so that we can continue to develop our own strengths. Tell us which ones would be your favorite. Just like I mentioned, Interstellar and Inglourious Basterds, those are two of my favorite movies. If there are movies that are similar to that, throw them in the comments so I can check them out. Let's keep telling good stories. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey guys, if you really like this video, check the one down below. You might like that one too.
And if you really like what you see, click here to subscribe.